Welcome to the Meeting Your Soul podcast. I'm Farah, your host, and this is my lovely niece, Kehlani, and she is joining us today to talk about communication, how to really share your feelings and your thoughts, and to be able to even identify some of the obstacles that really hinder us from being truly authentic or even being able to state what's on our mind, which I think can be kind of intimidating sometimes. So, yes, join us, and I am really excited to have this conversation. So thanks for coming.
Of course.
I know. I haven't been doing this recently, but I do feel the need just because I do know your full chart. What's your astrology? What's your big three on astrology?
I'm a Pisces sun, a Virgo moon, and a Gemini rising.
I love this combination, which is also two of your ruling planets are Mercury. So your Virgo and Gemini are both ruled by Mercury, which is the planet of communication. So it's definitely something that I could see being very, but then you have the elusive Pisces that's slightly in her dream world. So a little bit of all three.
Yeah.
Okay, so when we talked about this, we originally said, Kehlani doesn't remember this, but this is true. You should just let this be the topic of our podcast. I was like, okay. How will someone know if you don't tell them? And I think this comes up a lot because I think there's a lot of things that we hold within, or we assume people know, or we are too afraid to share. And I'm just curious, what comes to mind when you hear that phrase?
Your problems, or if you're in an uncomfortable state, how will either if it's a person that's creating that or anything, how will they know that that's something that's bothering you if you don't mention it?
So when it comes to your mind, you're thinking more of conflict, when something isn't going well. How do you communicate that or share that you're feeling bothered?
Yeah.
How do you typically approach this within your life?
I don't. Or at least I don't feel like...
Our dog is here too. Yes, keep going.
Go lay down. I mean, I do, but it depends on who or when or what the situation is, but most of the time I will just go silent, or I'll go to a state of myself.
Kind of you retreat when you feel uncomfortable, if you will.
Yeah.
Okay. And you said it depends on the situation. So are there situations where you feel more comfortable or so inclined to share kind of what you're going through, or people that you're truly unfiltered around?
Yeah, I think it would have to be my closest family or friends. If I've known you my whole life, then I'm more comfortable with telling you how I feel or what the situation is. But if it's just friends that we've been only friends for so many years or whatever, then I'm not gonna have that urge or that feeling where I need to be upfront.
So it sounds like obviously people that you trust, that you've known, that you have a long history with, are people that probably see all sides of you and know truly what's going on in your head, versus someone that maybe you've known for a couple years but are not as tight with. It's probably not going to be, they're not going to be filled in with all the tea to know what's going on with you.
Yeah.
Why? Sorry, my dog is literally on her back rolling around on the ground a little crazed, which she's normally super mellow. I have no idea what's going on with her right now, but
because I'm here.
Yeah, it is. She loves Kehlani. She's pay attention to me. But then I guess, is there so you said okay, close friends and family, and so has there been people that have bridged that gap? At what point would a friend then become a little bit more involved, or maybe filled in on what's going on with you?
I feel for me, it's more of when we've been friends for X amount of time, and that's there's when you become friends with somebody, and this is when you guys are first starting to hang out, and then that's where like you feel like, okay, I can trust this person, or I can tell this person like everything. And then after a period of time, like there's things that either go wrong, or like you see like another side of them. It's almost like when you're in a relationship and they're like, give it like 3 to 6 months and you see how a person really is. I think like in the beginning stage is where I'm like, okay, I can probably like trust you and tell you all these things. But yeah, it's either like that or like with the significant other.
Yeah. So for you, it's more of like this idea of building trust, right? And like establishing that you can like tell them things, that they'll respect your opinions, and like ultimately that they care, right? Like I think that that's a large part of it, and that they're going to want to work it out, or they want to listen to what you're going through and what you're feeling, and then like, and they're supportive of whatever that is.
I feel like, yeah, and like as time goes by, I feel like that's why I mentioned like the beginning stage, because after so much time that like kind of like goes away, like that trust, or like that they actually like truly care. And
Yeah. And like, is there things for you that you feel like have maybe galvanized that relationship, or like is it overcoming like having a conflict, talking through it and being able to move past it, or is it really just establishing trust and being able to know that, you know, they're not going to be like spreading your business all around, or like what for you kind of solidifies that type of relationship within your life, other than pure time, which it sounds like that's a big part of it too.
I don't know, like them sharing and being open with you, so it's like almost like a mutual thing. So it's like, okay, you tell me something that like you might have not told anyone else, okay, then I'm gonna tell you a little something that I've never like told anyone else. So like it's like mutual trust.
Yeah, it's a two-way street. Like there's definitely, they're sharing things, you're sharing things. It's kind of finding that open dialogue, and then kind of over time letting it bloom as it naturally does.
Yeah.
Sounds like. Well, and you are in somewhat of a new relationship. I wouldn't say new, but like in the last 6-7 months. So like, how has that process been for you two?
In which way?
Like establishing like trust and rapport, and like being more vulnerable with each other.
Oh, that definitely, in my relationship, that like, I don't know, I feel like that
It's on.
that was definitely built. But for me, like when I like somebody, I'm kind of just like straight to it. Like, I don't know, I'm just a lover girl, you could say. And for me, like within trusting you, because before, in previous relationships, I was not, like, I didn't trust you based off what I've experienced in the past, in my like very first relationship. And so with this one, I felt like I didn't have that like guard up. And so for me, I don't know, it was kind of just like an easy thing. I like was able to ask things, and then there's things that I just didn't ask about because I didn't like feel like that was really important to know. And yeah, I don't want to speak on like
Keith's
his behalf. Yeah.
Shout out, Keith, if you're listening. we're diving in. But no, but I think we can only really speak to our own experience, right? And so it sounds like for you, there was kind of almost an instant connection, which was like first and foremost. And then there was this kind of unfolding that naturally occurred over time, where you were able to be more yourself, but then also like, it sounds like you were pretty comfortable and like willing to be all of you from the very
from the jump with it. Very day we hung out.
Day one. But like so I'm curious, how does this differ from friendships versus relationships? Like, why is there a different approach for you? Is there a different thought pattern, or even just like perspective when you're approaching a friendship versus establishing a relationship with someone? Like, why not just be super open with a friend as well?
I don't know. There's something, at least for me, there's something about those two relationships where I'm always more open, and like more comfortable in a relationship, just because that's a different part that person gets to see of you.
Yeah.
And so with friends, like I've had friends come and go to where unless like I have known you since birth, that I probably won't be that open with or just trustworthy with.
Is it just like a gender thing? Because like in my mind, I like would feel more comfortable around like a girlfriend that I'm getting to know versus like a guy I'm getting to know. Like it would be the opposite for me. So that's why I was just wondering.
That is funny though that you say that, because I've always kind of said this before, being that I am the only girl growing up with just boys. I think it is like that because even now, like I have more guy friends than I do have female friends, and it's just like how I grew up. Like I'm close with my own brothers, and so it's something like, I don't know. I've always been able to just like not compare, but like the problems, like the typical like female problems, like I can't have a conversation about that with another. I can't with a female friend. Like I can't have those kind of conversations.
Really? Yeah.
I just never really truly have. So
unless it's someone that you've known for like most of your life, because it's like so then it's like it's not just a friendship, it's like a family. It's like truly family, right? Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I was just kind of curious, kind of what you're like, oh no, but like if I'm in a relationship or a new guy, like I'm very open. And I was like, oh, this is interesting, because then it's like, because like and personally, like I have certain but I think also it's the vibes, right? Like I think either way, like when you connect with someone, if it's male or female, and there's just kind of this instant kind of like camaraderie, like of knowing like that person has your truest and best intentions in mind. And I think for sometimes, especially as a female, like meeting a guy, like if you're interested, like obviously they're going to be like have your like best, like you would hope that they're going to like treat you with respect, and that they're going to like obviously like be aware of what they're sharing and not like spreading your business around and all that kind of stuff. But I haven't had like a negative experience. Have you had a negative experience with a girl that we felt like you like really opened up with and then it kind of backfired? Or even with a guy? I'm just curious.
Backfire? I don't think so.
Yeah. Or even like a friendship where you like shared something and you're like, oh shit, maybe I shouldn't have shared that with them.
Yeah. I mean, actually, multiple are like, well, they're sisters, but there's definitely something that I told them, and then, well, not at the same time, but have shared with them, and then stopped being friends with them. I knew it wouldn't like be shared by them to anybody or anything, or like anything that will like people will find out about me. It won't be a problem or anything, but it was like the same year that I then stopped being friends with them. And so that's why like I've like with family, like I've never really liked sharing certain things, just because not that I can't like trust you, but it's almost like that's just something that I can keep to myself. Like you really don't need to know.
Need to know basis. Yeah. But and then is that just because, is there fear associated with that? Like do you feel like there will be judgment, or is it more of just like you don't really need to have the conversation?
Both, but more leaning to like it's not really needed. I feel like in certain situations, like the whole judgment part, it kind of goes towards like a certain sign that I feel like always says this, but they'll kind of like make it as if like why, like that was like a bad thing that you did, like why'd you do that, or like
Yeah. It's almost like a criticism. It comes off critical.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think that that's, at least like for me, like that's like very much a key part of establishing trust and rapport within any type of relationship, is that if I catch the vibe that I feel like someone's judging me or is like going to like hold this against me or hold this over my head, it's a hard no for me. I'm like, I just won't tell you anything. Like I literally just won't share anything with you, because if that's like, if I share these things and like this is like how you're treating me afterwards, no matter how, like no matter what our relationship was before or whatever has happened, like I just can't, because like that makes me feel unsafe. Like I feel unsafe to share myself with you when that's the case.
Yeah.
And I think that goes for a lot of people. I think that a lot of people would agree with that. I think that that's across the board. But then, so what for you like really establishes like a strong connection or a trust, or even just like kind of like an open dialogue, like where you would feel really truly comfortable to be yourself?
Like within like a situation or a person?
Both. Or either. Whatever way you want to answer that.
I don't know. That's kind of like, I feel like I'm kind of battling that now. I mean, there's people that I like have no problem with sharing anything, like you. But there's something about the possibility of things possibly getting shared, which tends to happen with like within family, or if
Women
like
in
if like
general. It's like the gossip. Like I don't want to be a part of the gossip though. Yeah.
And I think that's why I can be more open with guys, because rarely do I know guys who gossip.
It's so true, because guys they're not gonna like go tell one of their other guy friends about something you've shared with them. It's like they could care a lot. Like that's just like not the topic of conversation. Well, then sometimes it can feel like with women that's kind of like the hot thing that they're gonna go and share. And I find this kind of fascinating, because there is this like aspect of me that it's like I want to share the good stuff. Like, why sometimes as women do we gossip about negative things that are going on in someone's life versus like, did you hear that they're like fucking winning, or they just did something great, or they just got a promotion, or like these things. Like, why do people share the negative stuff and the drama, if you will, instead of the things that are going well within someone's life? Like, why can't that be the hot topic?
Yeah, I think it has to do with like not hyping them up or putting them above ourselves. That's why like that is why you gossip about negative things. It's almost like the news, where you see more things about like negative things going on in the world more like the good. It's almost like to like scare you.
Yeah.
Like not bring positive energy.
I know. Well, and it's definitely, it's a buzzkill. Like, I feel like it's definitely something, like, at least for me, like, I think of, like, the Four Agreements, which is, like, one of my favorite books, but it was, like, speak with an integrity, you know? And, like, so much of it is, like, to yourself, but also about other people. And it's, like, removing gossip and, like eliminating from your life is such, like, a shift, because I think in our culture, it's so commonplace. But then once you remove that, it's like, well, then if you don't have that to talk about, then what are you talking about? And like even just having that perspective change has been a huge, I think, beneficial thing for my life. But it's like I want to hear about what's I like, and that's also like what I ask about, like what's going well for you, like what are your dreams, what are your hopes, how are you achieving them, like how can I be a part of that, how can I support you, because like that's what I think. Also, I think it's easy to focus on negative things like you were talking about with the news. And it's something, even like within our minds, they're designed to focus on negative things because it's supposed to keep us safe. But then I think that there's this idea that if that's all we think about and talk about, then like we're actually just perpetuating that more and more within our daily experience. So, what, like, would you say that this is like so funny. I didn't know this is where this was going to turn, but I do think that this is an important topic to like touch on, because I think gossip and just like talking shit is just such a common thing, but is so toxic. Like, what do you think about this?
What gossip?
Yeah.
I and it kind of goes with like our family and everything. Like if someone's like, oh, did you hear about this, or like have you talked to this person or whatever, I'll just be like, it's none of my business. Like if it's none of my business, I don't want to know. If it's not about me, I don't want to know. Like I just stay out of it.
Well, and I think that we're I think very similar in that, so that we're both like lean back, like engage if you like, everyone else can engage, and no judgment to that, because I think that that's how people connect. But I think there is this like
It's how people connect.
It's how people connect, but that's why I'm like, why does that need to be the topic of conversation? Why can't it be something that's positive, that's like empowering or encouraging? But I think it's habit. I think a lot of people just lean into it because that's just like what's common to them, what's been like the case for them.
Yeah.
And like that's just like easier almost. And again, like, you know, it's like a hot thing to be able to share, like when you have a secret to be able to share it. But it's like, for me, I don't like, it makes me feel bad sharing it. And maybe I also have like a wound, because like I got gossiped about a lot in high school. Like I was, which might have been a little while sometimes, but I got gossiped about all the time. And I felt like that was always like, there was always something circulating about me, and half of it wasn't true. But then I think for me, like I'm super sensitive to that, because I felt like there was a lot of things that got shared about me that weren't real. So for me, I don't want to necessarily do that for someone else, because then it's like I'm doing the same thing that I didn't want done to me. Like treat others how you want to be treated.
Yeah. I think that, like, I've never been like a gossiping type anyways. And I'm also very big on like, I'm like very not anxious to like what people say or anything, but like when it comes to even just like a big portion of people just like looking at me, I get into this like anxious state. And so like that's with like people talking about you too. Like I would not want anybody to talk about me at all. And not that like it would like bother me, like I don't care what people say, but it's just like I literally stay to myself. I'm just like in my own zone. Like I don't need my name out there.
Yeah, you're like, I don't need take my name out your mouth. But then it's like, I think doing those things, but then also it's like this idea of being seen, and that is like where I'm really like trying to get more comfortable right now. And like we've talked about this quite a bit, but it's like, but then like sometimes making waves and like putting yourself out there is like exactly where you're meant to be. And then it's like, how are you comfortable, or how do you almost accept kind of like that there's going to be different opinions or different perspectives on you? Like, is that something that you think about, that you consciously think about, or is it kind of like don't ask, don't tell kind of thing?
A little bit of both. I feel like just because with social media, that and where I want to be, that like that's gonna eventually have to happen anyways. Like I don't really want to be like this like hidden figure that's just like doing my own thing, but I do I don't know, like I want my face obviously out there, but like also like you kind of have to like make up your own story, like who I am. Like you won't know the real me, or like the 100% of Kehlani.
Yeah. It's like staying more mysterious so then people can kind of fill in the gaps where they see. And like from the little bits and pieces that they get to know. And I think the part with social media too is like we're able to curate what people do see, you know, and like how people are like taking that in because we're controlling what gets, you know, delivered or what's put out there.
Yeah.
I know we went on a little bit of a tangent there, but I was just thinking about, I was like, I'm just curious because like I think that that's one of the things. It's like I now know at this point in my life, like I'm okay with making waves. I'm trying to be more open and more willing to just like say my truth. And it's kind of like if it rubs you the wrong way or if it's perceived in a negative light, like I'm trying to relinquish the control over how that is the reaction, I guess. Because then I'm like, if it's my truth, if I know that it's like something that I want to share and that I feel truly authentic with, then like that's like I'm just gonna have to own that in whatever reaction I get from it.
I want to work on how I react to conflict or just something that is said, like kind of like stand up for myself in like a way where we're not like debating or like in a fighting type of way, but just like let it be known how I feel about what maybe you just said instead of just holding that in.
Yeah.
Because I tend to just go silent after like something is said to me that I don't like appreciate or didn't like the way it came out or whatever. So
So if someone says something that hurts you or maybe offends you even, it's kind of like you'll just retreat or even just slightly like remove yourself from the situation versus calling it out and like addressing it.
Yeah.
Are you someone that holds on to that though? Like, do you think about it afterwards or do you let it go?
I'm definitely the person who like will hold on to it, and I've always been the like I will forgive but I won't forget type of person. And there are situations where if it is resolved, then like I'll forget about it, but like you kind of have to be the person to say sorry.
I was like, how will it be resolved if no one ever talks about it?
Like I don't like to bring up a situation or anything that like happened a day ago and it's a new day. Like I'm not that type, but like if you do, then maybe I'll express like, yeah, I didn't like what you said, that, but
so if someone brings it up to you, it's like you're okay with like kind of broaching the topic, but you're not gonna necessarily go out of your way to like start to spark that.
Yeah, because I feel like for me, then if I do that, then I should have then said what I wanted to say when it happened.
Yeah. But I think it's really hard for a lot of people in the moment to be able to articulate their feelings because they're not really sure or clear on how they even feel about it yet.
Yeah, or like how they want to say it. For me, like I may not say it, but like I can write it out to you. I can type it, but like for it to verbally come out, it's kind of hard for me.
Really? Yeah. But that's like good to know though. And a lot of people like there's so many studies that people will like, especially forgiveness or like there's like some type of conflict, to write out your feelings and like write them a letter is actually like very much suggested by a lot of therapists and like a way to like have those conversations because it's intimidating. And also there's like, I think for empaths or people that are more sensitive to energy, it's like once you start that conversation, not really knowing how that person's gonna like show up is like also a little bit intimidating as well. But it sounds like for you, like you are willing to have the conversation and then kind of, but be in kind of control of how it's communicated and how it's shared. And also the other person's definitely got to be the one to make that first move. Is there been a time where you have stood up for yourself and or like have stated it in the moment?
Yeah, that's like my feisty side.
We're all a little feisty. We're all a little bit feisty.
Yeah, no, there's definitely times that I will stand up for myself, especially if it's something. It's like if it's something that I have no like wrongdoing in, or if it, like, it wasn't my fault for something, then I would definitely stand up for myself. But then the times that I do kind of just like hold back is something that, okay, yeah, like, and then the day, like, you're right, like, it is my fault for something, or I should have said something within a certain time period, or whatever the case may be. Like, it's almost like I'm being quiet because I don't want to say you're right.
Oh, so it's more of like it's almost like when you're in the wrong that you feel like you don't want to necessarily have the conversation.
Yeah.
Don't we all? I don't think anybody's like, I don't necessarily who's stoked about being like, I was wrong. I shouldn't have done that. It was a terrible idea. But then I think that there's so much power that comes from it too, though, to be able to like kind of to be able to breach a conversation with someone and to move through something. I think that that's actually how you create a stronger bond with the people around you, because like once you make it to the other side of that, it's almost like you teach each other that you can get through something like that together, especially within relationships with like a partner, but then also within friendships and everything. I think that that's an important piece. How do you, like you said you would like to write it, like do you think that you could write it to someone or even like have the conversation later and be able to communicate in that form?
Yeah, I think I don't know, like it depends on like how much time has went past. With like, if it was a fight between like me and Keith and I didn't say something, and I'm like you said, with being an empath, like I am big on the energy, so how like how it came out, then that's what's gonna like put me in the show. But I feel like with that, like I actually have like written a letter before, expressing how I felt, just because I didn't, not necessarily like know how to say it, but I don't know, like I feel like when you can think about what you want to say first, or like be able to reread it instead of just like saying it, then it comes out better.
Yeah. It's more thoughtful, right?
Yeah. But with maybe like a friend or something, I really would have to genuinely care or have cared about you to then maybe write you a message explaining why like I haven't talked to you for X amount of time.
So for you, it's likely comes up or like kind of comes into fruition as in you just remove yourself. You're kind of like tiptoed, you're lean out and you're like deuces. And then if there was like something that, if a friendship really meant something or was like really important to you or something, someone you felt like you really couldn't live without, then it might be like, okay, like let's work through it and let's talk about this because like I want to make sure our friendship survives.
Which there's the friends that like time can go on, and then once you do have that feeling like, oh, I want to reconnect, or if they like connected with you or reached out to you, then it's almost like, okay, like that was a good amount of time, like I can now like share to you or talk to you. But I feel like it depends on what the case was, like what happened to even get into that space.
Well, and it's also like, do you even want to, like, if depending on what occurred, it also could be like, do I really even want to continue being friends with you? Or is this like a sign or a signal that this friendship isn't really panning out the way either of us did, and like to just kind of peacefully part ways might be the best option.
Yeah.
Or it's like, no, let's like keep this going. Let's like work through this together. So it kind of sounds like it's dependent on the person and also the situation.
Yeah, because I mean, if this person treated you how you would never treat them, definitely not reaching out.
I'm good. I'll pass on that. Well, and that's, And I think that that's like owning your value as a human being and like not chasing and just being like, I know I deserve to be treated better than this by, relationship or friendship, just being able to recognize that and to be able to like own your worth and removing yourself from situations that really aren't serving you in any way and are actually maybe even like tearing you down personally. Yeah. And I was like, this has definitely been something that I've battled with personally as like just standing, like I'm also one, like I'm pretty like chill. But then I think we both have this like, it's like a certain moment where we just like pop off and we're just like, oh, like you want to fuck with me? Like it becomes this more feisty kind of response versus one that's thoughtful. So I've been trying to lean into balancing that feisty, like little spitfire side of me with like thoughtful communication because like let's bridge that gap because I want to say how I feel. I don't want to hold on to it. I don't want to keep that story looping within my mind. I want to move past it. But then also I want to do so where I'm not like spitting flames from my mouth as a dragon that I can be sometimes. And so like I think that there is that balance in between. Do you feel like you've found that or is that something you're still trying to create?
I feel like I can go into both modes. I have been told I was rude multiple times by like my mom, my boyfriend, like, and it's not that I'm like bitch, but it's like
or maybe no, I'm joking.
But it's like how I like come off or like even like my facial expressions. Like I've been told that like I don't see how I look, but like they're like nasty looks.
You do it sometimes. But maybe I just love you too much. Also, this is my niece, so I've literally known her whole life, and she will always be this cute little 5-year-old in my head. But I just think you're funny. But maybe I also kind of like spicy personalities. I do. I tend to lean towards those people in my life. So I think it's funny, but not everyone finds the humor in it, I guess.
And it's not that like it's intentional. Like it really is just like a natural thing that I do. But
like, that's really how I feel. It's just coming out.
But I don't know. I just feel like that will be the time that like that like I didn't like what you said or like you can reflect it.
Yeah. Like I didn't like that shit. Well, but then I think that that's like almost like when that happens, it's like, well, that's how I feel. And so like I'm sorry if that offended you, but like what you just did offended me. And so it's like this is an exchange. Like this is two-way. Like this is coming up for both of us. So then it's like, so then do you talk about it in that moment, or like then how do you move forward?
I feel like in those situations, I'm more like open easily to talk about it than like in my like little sad girl moment where like I just like get closed off. Like I can be more open, talk about it more when like that just happened where like okay, now I'm in the hot seat. And so
and then it's like it feels more comfortable, or are you just more willing, or like what do you think?
I think it's like I think more willing because it's like the blood's already boiling.
Well, and then that's like coming from more of a place from anger versus from this like sadness or like almost like in your feelings. Like it's hard to communicate when you're in your feelings, I think, for anyone. And so because it's like it's painful, right? Like it is actually painful. So when there's a little spite, when there's a little bit of spit fire coming through, then you might be more inclined to be able to like have the conversation in that moment. Do you feel like you're able to articulate your feelings in a considerate way in those moments, or is that difficult?
Yeah, because I'm never gonna be like the type to like call you out your name or like say something that I regret later on. Like I still know what I want to say, and like I'm like clear-minded in those situations. And it was just weird because like I can thoughtfully and still be clear about what I want to say in that type of situation more than like when you like just hurt my feelings.
Do you think what do you think the difference is?
I don't know. I think it's like a certain spot that is just like hit. Like, I don't know, maybe it's the Pisces in me, I don't know, like, just there is a certain area where it's like, if you just made me sad, or I was already sad and you just like made it worse.
Yeah. You're just gonna be like, and I'm going into my hiding place and I'm not speaking for a little while.
Yeah.
And I think that that's like, sometimes that's what you need, right? Like, I feel like sometimes I do just need to, like Kyle used to say, it was me going into my shell. But I would literally just like I'd just like get quiet, and like I just need to like tend to my wounds, if you will, like almost like nurture myself. But then do you feel like after you give yourself that time, are you able to like kind of approach the conversation, or like be able to talk through it afterwards?
Yeah, it will have to be like a little later on. I actually read something, and it was on Instagram, and it was like, after you and your maybe like significant other just gone to fight, to like give yourself, I think it was like minimum of like 30 minutes, and like you have to go do something, like you have to like go work out or maybe go for a walk or whatever, to then it's like that certain amount of time to like process what just happened.
Yep.
So then you can like come back and like have a conversation about it without like just grabbing it from like your feelings.
Yeah. Well, and to be able to like almost like not intellectualize, but almost analyze what's occurred, so that you're able to say like, this is my response, and this is the reason where it stemmed from. And it's really, we were talking about this before, it's like that nonviolent communication, to be able to say like, I want to share with you how I feel, but I want to be specific about what that means to me, and like what occurred and how it made me feel. And I think the intention behind that is to, share and to be vulnerable. And I think when the intention's that it's a little bit more of productive conversation. But I do love the part of you bringing up the movement, because so much of that's within somatic healing. Like, sometimes we need to be able to like get the emotions through, like to move that energy, pass it through, so that that's able to like kind of like dissipate, and that we're able to leave with the lesson and kind of what the purpose is, and like the root cause of what's really going on, right?
Yeah.
How do you feel like those conversations, or have you done that yet? Have you been able to be like, something bothered me, and then like go for a walk, or like leave and then come back?
Yeah. I feel like it was like kind of recent, actually. There was something that like was brought up, or like a little piece of conflict, mid walk, or like we were going for a walk, or like finishing our walk, and then after that amount of time where, okay, I'm like not talking, but I'm walking, like it's kind of just like getting through. So then once we did get back home, then I was able to be like, I didn't like so and so, or didn't like what just happened.
Yeah. And are you grateful after those conversations? Like, do you feel like those are important to have? Like, there's like a lot of studies by like Jay Shetty about like learning how to fight, and like being able to be respectful, to be able to articulate your feelings, but to handle those things as they appear is actually the signal and the sign of a long-term sustainable relationship.
Yeah, I feel like they're important just because it's like not important just for the sake of the relationship, but like to your own heart, to know that you are heard.
Yeah.
And that what you maybe wasn't just like what they said, but like how they said it, or like the energy that came with it, that hits a part of you. And so yeah, and I think that goes along with like the like being able to like write a note, just because I don't know, it's something about like thinking about it, and it's not coming out of your mouth, that like expresses more. And so yeah, it's important.
Yeah. Well, and you're such an artistic person as well. Do you feel like you kind of create from that space? Has that ever been motivation or inspiration for you to be able to release anything that you're experiencing personally?
Mm, for me, I don't feel like so. I feel like it kind of just, like, it makes me lose that, like, that wanting to even do anything for me. But like there is artists or even like musicians out there that can create from like a heartbreak, like musicians who actually make like love songs and everything or like all that. Yeah, for me, I don't know. And maybe I just don't realize it, but I feel like I'm not motivated whatsoever when I'm like sad.
I know, me neither. That's why I was just curious. I was like, because you are very creative. So I was like, do you ever let that be the piece of inspiration? I feel like it's more of like, I want to share a piece of me, but from a place of love versus pain. And I feel like that's more of what inspires anything that I create. But I was just curious what your thoughts were. So thanks so much for kind of sharing all of this. And I think this is like really insightful and just like good things to like bring up, because I think a lot of people are in the same boat of like, conflict. How do you approach it? When is the right time to talk about it? How do you bring it up to someone that you love? And like, how do you use it as a tool to be able to grow closer to someone versus further apart? And, when we were kind of talking through all this, but I think there's like three things that we both can agree on that really stand out, and like how to be able to aid you in having these conversations in a more thoughtful and an intentional way. And so what would be probably the number one thing for you, excuse me, that would be important to like, before you go into one of these conversations, what to consider?
Taking that time that
Like
you
30
need,
minutes.
yeah, of like doing something that has nothing to do with even maybe being around this person, taking some time like to or for yourself to really like gather what just happened so you can analyze what needs to like happen next.
Yeah, to really like reflect on how you feel about it and like what you want to share or what is important for you to be able to communicate to them from it. Like, what's that nugget of truth that is really probably the root cause of what the conflict is in the first place. Yeah. And like almost like I'm a big believer in like pausing and like taking a few minutes to like breathe or just like reflect. And I think that's like, even in the moment, I try to do that because I want to know that I'm coming from like, what's my intention? Where am I coming from? Am I responding from a place of hurt in order to hurt or retaliate? Or am I coming from a place of like, no, like, I am hurt or I am sad, but like I want to share this with this person because I need to stand up for myself, and also I want them to be able to hear me out and share what's coming up. So I think intention is like the number one thing, at least, or second thing for me is like, what's the intention? Where are you coming from? And what are you trying to share? And like, are you just trying to get back at someone, or are you trying to create a stronger bond with that person? And I think recognizing, I learned about the drama triangle like years ago through yoga teacher training, and it's always been something that stuck with me because I recognize that so there's three roles within the drama triangle. You're either the victim, the hero, or the villain. And usually you pair up with people that are not the same as you, and then you guys end up going in. So like, I would say in relationships in the past, like I would lean into the victim or the hero, and then the other person then almost like automatically led them to be the villain. And then that was what they felt more comfortable with. And so I think everyone has like something that they've probably been doing since their youth. And like, that's kind of naturally what role they fall into. But to be able to identify what that means for you and to take a step back to like be more neutral in your approach so that you're not feeding in to more chaos, more like of the upheaval versus like soothing a situation. So like, I know like I want to fix it all. Then I go to hero, and then I'm like, oh, I want to fix it. I'll do anything to make this work. I'll make it all better. Like, no. Like, you don't have to worry about anything. You don't need to change because like, I'll make it all okay. And that doesn't help the other person too, because it also shows them that you don't trust them and that they can't do it on their own. And so it creates like that codependency relationship. Anyway, so it's like one of those things I really started noticing. And I feel like since then I'm able to just like ease out a little bit to like take that 30,000 foot view. And so that when I do move in, it's like I'm coming from a neutral place because I want to like resolve this. But also, what would you say the last thing is that it might be okay not to fully resolve.
Yeah. I think like the whole agree to not this or
Agree to disagree.
yeah.
Yeah.
Cuz I mean you're not going to always like be mutual in everything.
Yeah.
And that's fine. Like that's totally okay.
Well, and like the other person might still have differing opinions, but that isn't the end of the world.
Yeah.
It's kind of like it is what it is, and like if you still respect one another no matter what, then that's like how you can like conclude something too.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you really move on from something if it never gets like there's not that settling point or the compromise, I guess?
Yeah. I think that's all I really have unless it was like I'm sorry, here's some flowers type of like situation, but I mean, because no one's ever gonna truly like feel the same way as you do about something, and so I may still be hurt about it, or like it might still be on my mind some days, but I mean, I'm not gonna like look at you differently.
Well, it's just funny, but I think that you bring up a good point. So it's like I'm not holding on to this to where like we can't be good.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like there is, I think finding compromising, agreeing to disagree is important because like I can talk to I'm blue in the face about something and how I feel about it, but the other person still might not ever understand or like really get my perspective, and that's okay. Like it doesn't have to necessarily be like you have to identify, but I think respect is really that baseline.
Yeah.
That as long as you're working from that place on both sides, then like whatever occurs is what it is. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for having this conversation with me. I'm so excited we're able to have you on the pod. We've been trying to get this going for a little while, so I'm just happy that we're able to have the conversation. And where can people find you? How do you want people to connect with you if they were interested in doing so?
My only social media is Instagram, and it's gonna be my name, Kaylani Moore. So KLONIMOORE, all one word. Yeah.
Catch her on the gram. She's stunning if you haven't seen her already, but also creative and just fashionable. And there's so much that I think a perspective that you share within your social media that I always like appreciate, and it just makes me smile. So thanks for shining bright in all that you do.
Thank you.
And if you and as always, I am also on the gram at Ferrachino, FERRAHCHINO, and I'm sharing my journey, my stories, my experience within this life, and some little nuggets of wisdom that I'm gathering along the way, and hopefully being able to share them with all of you guys so that you're able to connect, we're able to resonate, and we're able to evolve as a community and through a more conscious awareness of all that we do within our lives. So we'll see you soon. Thank you so much for listening. I love you already. Bye.